The day is over. Whatever it held, it's behind you now. Tonight's story isn't just for sleep. It's for softness, for slowing down. Subscribe if you'd like more gentle moments like this one. And let me know, when do you usually listen to these stories? The Girl Who Collected Goodbyes. She appeared at the edge of the street sometime in late May. No one really saw her arrive. She was just suddenly there. A little girl in a yellow raincoat, even though the sun had been shining for days. She had a canvas satchel across her shoulder, the kind school children used before backpacks became the norm, and she walked like she was counting the cracks in the pavement. I first noticed her because she stopped outside my window and waved. Not in a casual passing way, but like she knew me. Like we'd met before and shared something important, though I was certain we hadn't. I nodded, unsure how else to respond. The next day, she was there again. Same coat, same bag, same soft smile. This time, she spoke. "Do you have one?" "A what?" I asked. "A goodbye," she said matter-of-factly. "I collect them." She didn't elaborate, just tapped the side of her bag with a quiet sort of pride, then kept walking. I watched her disappear around the corner, her shadow thin and long in the afternoon light. I didn't think much of it. Children say strange things. But the next day, and the day after that, she returned always around the same hour, always with the same question. "Do you have one?" Sometimes she asked the mailman, the woman with the dog, the man who owned the corner shop. People either humored her or ignored her, but she kept asking. And occasionally, someone would pause just for a moment and say something like, "I said goodbye to my sister yesterday, she's moving abroad," or "My cat passed last week." And when they did, the girl would quietly nod, reach into her bag, and jot something down in a small notebook. Then she'd thank them and move on. I didn't know why it fascinated me so much. Maybe it was the solemnity with which she did it. The dignity, almost. She never made a show of grief or asked for details. Just accepted the goodbye, as if it were a coin or a note passed hand to hand, as if she was keeping them safe. I began to look forward to seeing her. It gave my days a shape, a soft anticipation. I didn't always talk to her, but I'd watch from my window from the steps of the building from across the cafe. One day, I finally asked, "Why do you collect goodbyes?" She looked up at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world, because people forget them, and they're important. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. But that night, I thought about the last real goodbye I'd given. Not just a "see you later," but the kind that leaves something behind. And I realized I couldn't remember, not clearly, just shadows of endings, faded doorways, silence. And I began to wonder, what would it mean to have someone keeping track of the goodbyes we forget to carry? Someone who believed they mattered enough to collect. She arrived at the usual time, sometime between late light and early shadow, the hour when everything slows down and even the birds sound quieter. She stood on the curb, rocking slightly on her heels, waiting. I didn't make her ask this time. I stepped outside and said, "I might have one today." She didn't smile, but her eyes brightened in a way I hadn't noticed before. She opened her satchel slowly, like someone unlocking something delicate, and pulled out the little brown notebook. She licked her finger, turned to the next blank page, and looked up at me. "Go ahead." I hesitated, then said, "I threw away my father's coat last night. It had been hanging in the closet for 3 winters. I never wore it, but I couldn't give it away either. I think I was waiting for him to come back and need it." The words felt strange coming out. Not like a confession, more like opening a window you forgot had been painted shut. She wrote it down. Carefully, no rush. Coat, 3 winters. Father, waiting. Then, without lifting her head, "How did it feel?" I blinked. "Lighter, I guess. But also, like something was missing the next time I opened the door." She looked up, nodded once, closed the notebook. "Thank you." "That's it?" I asked. "You don't want more?" "Goodbyes don't have to be long to matter," she said, then turned and began walking. I watched her go, her yellow coat a small sun drifting down the sidewalk. I stood there for a long time after, feeling something I hadn't felt in a while. Not grief, exactly, but space, like I'd made room for something. Or maybe let go of something I hadn't realized I was still holding. Over the next few days, I began to notice something unusual. People were talking to her more. The florist gave her a small pressed daisy. A man in a wheelchair offered her a candy and said, "She didn't like sweets, but I do. That was the difference between us." She nodded, wrote something down. Even the grocer, who barely spoke to anyone, told her, "I stopped wearing the cologne she liked. It's not for me anymore." And each time, she recorded the goodbye, thanked them, and moved on. Quiet, intentional, like someone archiving what no one else wanted to keep but couldn't bear to lose. I asked her once, "What do you do with them all?" She shrugged. "Keep them. So they're not just left behind, so they don't get lonely." I almost laughed, but something in her tone stopped me. She wasn't playing. She meant it. And I started to wonder if maybe goodbyes were like people needing to be seen, named, given a place to rest. That night I went home and wrote one down myself, just for me. I folded it and put it in a drawer. It felt good. Strange, but good. Like I'd taken something heavy and finally laid it down where it couldn't keep tugging at me. And I thought of her notebook page after page of small griefs and quiet courage. It didn't make the world lighter, but maybe, just maybe, it made someone feel a little less alone when they reached for the door that would never open again. She didn't come that day. The corner was quiet. The air was the same. The light just as soft. The birds flitting through the trees like nothing had changed, but something had. I found myself watching the minute hand slide past the usual hour, expecting to see a yellow coat swing into view, expecting the tap of her shoes on the sidewalk. But nothing came, just silence. And it wasn't a dramatic silence. Not stormy, not cinematic, just space where something usually was. I stood by the window longer than usual, not pacing, just still. I even made tea, not because I wanted it, but because it felt like a gesture I could control. At 6:30, I glanced outside again. Still nothing. It's strange how fast something becomes routine, how easily the mind builds meaning around small consistencies. A nod, a glance, a child's question, "Do you have one?" That evening, The absence settled beside me on the couch like a soft, folded coat no one claimed. I thought about the little notebook, the way she turned pages slowly, like each one was precious. I wondered where she was. Not in the big, dramatic sense. I didn't imagine danger. I didn't feel fear. Just a quiet curiosity laced with something I didn't want to name. It wasn't until I turned off the light for bed that I realized something. I missed being asked. Not just her presence, but the question, the invitation. Do you have one? It had become a mirror I didn't know I needed. Not to reflect sorrow, but to see what I was still carrying, silently, unnecessarily. The next day she returned, just as quietly as she'd first appeared. Same bag, same yellow coat, no explanation, and I didn't ask. She stopped by the mailbox and looked up at me. I smiled. Rough day off? She tilted her head. Just full, she said. Some goodbyes take longer to carry. I nodded, unsure how to reply. Then I said, You missed one yesterday. I know, she said, but sometimes it's okay to keep one to yourself. Then she opened her notebook and added something on a page already half full. I couldn't see what, and for once, I didn't try. That evening, as the sky melted into a blue that only comes after long heat, I sat by the window and whispered a goodbye I hadn't known I still remembered. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even entirely complete, but it was mine. And I imagined, somewhere in that notebook of hers, there was now a small corner of space for it, scribbled gently in tiny print, right beside a pressed daisy or a ticket stub. Kept. Not to be fixed, just to be heard. It was a cooler day, the kind where even the trees seemed to breathe a little slower. She didn't speak when she arrived, just walked up, reached into her bag, and handed me a small white card. No lines, no fold, just a question, written neatly in block letters, as if she'd thought about it for a long time. Do you ever keep them on purpose? That was it. No, hello, no, do you have one today? She just gave me the card, waited a moment, then nodded, and walked off down the street, her steps unhurried, her coat catching the breeze behind her. I stood there a long while, longer than I meant to. The card felt oddly heavy in my hand. Not physically, it couldn't have weighed more than a feather, but in meaning. I read the question again. Do you ever keep them on purpose? I went inside and laid the card on the kitchen table. I didn't sit down right away, just kept walking past it, glancing at it, like it might say something more if I gave it enough time. That evening, instead of speaking into the quiet like I usually did, I sat by the window and thought about her question, and slowly, uncomfortably, I realized I did. I had kept some, on purpose. I thought of the voicemail from a friend I'd never called back, still saved in my phone. I thought of the half-packed suitcase in the closet from a trip I never took after she left. I thought of a single sock hers, still hidden in the back of the laundry drawer, not forgotten, not missed, just kept. And I knew, somewhere deeper than I wanted to admit, that those weren't accidents. I had preserved them like pressed flowers between pages, as if holding on to the moment before the goodbye made me feel closer to what had already gone. The card didn't ask for an answer. It didn't even ask to be returned. But I turned it over and wrote softly, in pencil, yes. More than I knew. I didn't know if she'd ever see it. Maybe she left it only to stir something in me. But I left the card in the window anyway, propped between two small potted plants, just in case. Not as a reply, but as a quiet confession. That night, I didn't speak aloud. I didn't need to. My silence had shape, intention, and in its stillness, I felt seen. Not by her, necessarily, but by the part of me I rarely let walk into the light. The part that hoarded endings, tucked them into drawers, and hoped no one noticed, until someone did. I found her sitting under the elm tree near the old post office. Legs tucked beneath her coat, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes fixed on something far away. It was the first time I'd ever seen her still, not moving, not walking, not collecting. Her notebook was beside her, closed. Her pencil sat untouched on the grass. She looked up when she saw me. No wave, just a soft, tired blink. I sat down a short distance away, not close enough to crowd her, just close enough to say, I'm here. For a while, we didn't speak. The wind moved gently through the leaves, making that quiet, fluttering sound like the world was turning pages of something only it could read. Then she said, almost like she was talking to the air, people think goodbyes are loud. I didn't answer. She didn't need one. But some of them are just not being picked up after school, she continued. One day, you get in the car, and your mom's music is playing. And the next day, it's someone else. Same car, same music, but different shoes in the front seat. Her voice didn't waver, but she picked at the sleeve of her coat while she spoke, like unthreading the memory as it came out. No one told me she wasn't coming back. They just said, she's busy. And then one day it was, she lives in another place now. I wasn't mad. I just kept waiting. She looked at me then directly. Sometimes I still do. Not because I think she'll come back, but because I don't remember saying goodbye. And I think that's why I started asking everyone else. I nodded. Not because I understood everything, but because I didn't need to. Her silence said more than her words. She picked up the notebook, flipped to a page somewhere in the middle, and tore it out, folded it carefully, handed it to me. This one's mine, she said, but you can keep it, just for a while. I didn't open it right away. I tucked it into my jacket pocket, where it sat like a warm stone, quietly humming against my ribs. We sat like that a while longer, the scribe and the quiet man, with too many half-packed goodbyes. Not needing to explain anything, just breathing, just being. And I realized she wasn't collecting to understand other people's endings. She was collecting so none of them would feel like hers, like they vanished without being spoken. That evening, I didn't say anything into the quiet. I just unfolded the note. It was short, barely 5 lines. Dear Mum, I waited for you for 7 Thursdays. Then I learned how to walk myself home. I'm okay now, but I would have liked a hug. Love, me. I refolded it slowly and whispered into the stillness, you're safe here. Then I placed it on the shelf, with the rest between the white card and the coat button I couldn't throw away. She came to the door that evening. Instead of waving from the street, it startled me. Not because I was afraid, but because I had never seen her so close, so certain. Her yellow coat was buttoned wrong one loop off, and there was a smear of something blue on her cuff. Ink, maybe, or paint. Today's goodbye is a different one, she said, without waiting for a question. It's not for someone else. It's for you. I stood still. What do you mean? She pulled something from her bag, not the notebook this time, but a plain sheet of paper, folded once. She held it out like it weighed something. Write a goodbye to the you who waited, she said. The one who didn't know what to do when the quiet stayed too long. That version of you. The one who needed someone to listen, but didn't know how to ask. Her voice wasn't soft now. It wasn't harsh either. Just steady. Like a thread being pulled clean through fabric. I wanted to say no, to laugh it off, to tell her it was too much, but I didn't, because, deep down, I knew exactly who she meant. The man who stood in doorways, waiting for footsteps that never returned. The one who didn't delete old voicemails, who kept coats he didn't wear, who poured 2 cups of tea out of habit long after there was only one mouth to warm. I took the paper, sat down at the small kitchen table. The room was quiet, but she didn't leave. She waited by the door, looking at the bookshelf like she belonged in that space. I wrote slowly, one line at a time. No flourishes, no metaphors, just the truth. You did what you could. You carried her absence like a folded note you didn't know how to read. But you can let go now. You don't have to stand in that old hallway anymore. She knew you loved her, even when you couldn't say it. And now, you're allowed to speak again, to move, to rest. I'm not leaving you behind. I'm just giving you peace. When I looked up, she was watching me, not with pity, not with pride, just patience. I handed her the letter, but she shook her head. Keep it, she said. He needs to hear it from you. She turned to leave, then paused. Most people don't know when they're holding on to an old version of themselves. But when you say goodbye to that person kindly, you make space for who you've become. I stood there a long time after she was gone. I didn't speak, didn't write. Just placed the folded note beside my bed, like a stone you leave on a grave. Not because you expect something back, but because you want to mark that it mattered. And as I turned off the light, I said softly, just once, thank you for carrying him this far. She didn't come with her notebook that day. No bag, no pencil. Just a small wooden box in her hands, worn at the edges, corners darkened by time and touch. She walked straight to me, not with urgency, but with a strange sort of stillness, like a whisper that had waited all day to be heard. I want to show you something, she said. We didn't go far. Just behind the church, on the edge of the neighborhood, where the grass grows uneven and the old swing creaks even when no one is on it. She knelt beneath a bench that faced a rusted fence and placed the box down between us. These are the ones no one claimed, she said, lifting the lid. Inside were folded papers of every kind, napkins, envelopes, receipts, bits of cardboard, some yellowed, some new. Each one bore a line or a word, or sometimes just a name. She didn't explain how they'd gotten there, whether people had given them to her and forgotten, or if she'd found them in the quiet places dropped in parks, left between book pages, whispered and lost to wind. Everyone thinks their goodbye has to go somewhere, she said, but most just float. So I keep the ones that don't find a place. I reached in, carefully, as if the box were full of sleeping birds. The first paper said, "It wasn't your fault." The second, "I wish I had stayed a little longer." Another, smaller one, barely a sliver of paper, read, "I didn't mean to make it hurt." My fingers trembled slightly as I touched each one. None had names, none had dates. Just fragments, unmoored, but real. She watched me quietly. No instructions, no judgment. "You can keep one," she said. "Only one. But it has to be one that feels like it already belonged to you." I didn't speak. I read through a few more, each one like a heartbeat caught mid-pulse. Then I found it. Folded twice, tucked beneath the rest, written in fading ink on the back of an old train ticket. "You were never too much. I just didn't know how to hold everything you gave me." I read it again and again, then pressed it to my chest gently. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. Some recognitions don't need tears, just stillness. I looked at her, and she nodded once, as if she knew, as if she had known all along. I slipped the note into my coat pocket, next to my own folded letters. "Do you keep any for yourself?" I asked. She paused, then whispered, "Just one." I didn't ask which. That felt like a sacred thing, a name you don't say out loud, not even to yourself. We sat there until the light shifted, until the box was closed again, until silence wrapped around us like dusk. And as we stood, she said softly, "Goodbyes don't have to be loud. Sometimes they just need a witness." That night, I didn't speak. I didn't write. I simply placed the train ticket beneath my pillow and let its weight and all it had once meant to someone rest with me. She came just before the rain. The sky was that soft kind of silver, not threatening, not heavy, just full. She wasn't wearing the yellow coat this time. Instead, a pale sweater with sleeves too long and cuffs chewed slightly at the ends. Her satchel was missing. No notebook, no box. She walked up to the fence, hands in her pockets, eyes calm. "This is my last round," she said gently. "I won't be collecting any more. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to." Her voice held no sadness, just a stillness that felt final and kind. She looked around at the street, the sidewalk, the tree that always dropped its leaves too early. Then she turned to me and said, "Thank you." Just that. "For what?" I asked. She smiled, the corners of her eyes creasing just slightly. "For keeping the quiet, for answering softly, for not rushing the weight of things." A pause. "Most people don't know how to sit with what's unfinished, but you didn't try to fix any of it. You just held it." I didn't know how to respond. Something in me ached, not from grief, but from recognition, from the realization that I had come to count on her presence, the way you count on the hum of the refrigerator at night, subtle, comforting, unnoticed, until it's gone. "Will you keep them?" I asked. "The goodbyes?" She nodded. "Some, but most don't need keeping anymore. They've been spoken, and that's enough." She took something from her pocket, a small square of paper, folded once, and handed it to me. "Last one," she said. "It's not a goodbye, just a thank you someone forgot to say. I didn't open it then. It felt private. even if it was meant for no one in particular. Or maybe for both of us. She turned to leave, her steps slow but certain, and paused only once at the end of the block. Without turning around, she raised her hand in a small wave, and then she was gone. The rain started just minutes later, light, soft, like static falling from the sky. I sat by the window and watched the street she had walked so many days, now empty, glistening with reflection. Then I unfolded the note. It was written in a small, careful hand. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't say. That night, I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I held the paper to my chest and felt the quiet press back, warm, steady, present. And in that moment, I knew. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to listen, to carry silence with you until it's no longer heavy, until it becomes a kind of peace.